Okay. Hi, everyone. My name's Alyssa. This is Stories and Spoilers, the podcast. This is a very special episode. We are discussing some amazing romantasy and adventure and brilliant books by Angela Montoya. And I also have my wonderful friend here, Calissa, from, oh my gosh, Busy Reading Romantasy. You've been on my podcast, I've been on your podcast, and we're always coming back to each other. And we actually read this book together. So if you want to hear a full book talk about that, you can go on Busy Reading Romantasy's episode. I'll link it in the show notes below. But this episode is going to be talking all about A Cruel Thirst and Sinner's Isle. Non spoiler, of course, but just inspiration and all the things. So let's introduce ourselves, y'all. Tell them all about you.
Yeah, I guess I'll start. I'm
Yeah.
Angela Montoya, author of Sinner's Isle and A Cruel Thirst. I am so awesome. I have a barn cat. I am a mom, and I'm out here working.
Yeah.
I'm super happy to be on here with you too.
Thank you for being on the podcast. And for
Yeah.
the one who does not need an introduction, the podcast bestie who always comes through. All right. How have you been doing?
I'm good. Thank you. Yeah, you've seen me before, guys. This is nothing new. As
As the
always,
listeners know, we go down that dark tunnel together. We hop into the darkness together. We
hand in
always say
hand.
that. Let's just
Yeah.
hop into the darkness together. Let's go. We all
Yes.
float over here. Let's all chill out. So yeah, we riding dragons. We're slaying monsters. We're slaying vampires. Everything's going wrong. Ancient gods. But we make it work. We make it work. So, quick question: we read A Cruel Thirst. How would you describe it without any spoilers for folks who want to know more about this book?
Ooh. Okay.
Mhm.
Let me try to
You
describe this
got
book
this.
that I wrote. Let me think.
Yeah.
So, A Cruel Thirst. It is a young adult. I guess it's romantasy, but it's paranormal. Feels a little historical. So it's kind of like a mashup. But it follows Lalo Villalobos, who is a recently turned vampire, and he really hates it. He's really terrible at it, and so he wants to try and turn himself back. And he believes how he can do that is go to this tiny pueblo and kill the original vampire. Instead, he bumps into Carolina, who is a wannabe vampire huntress, and sparks and daggers fly when they first meet. It's a bit it's not a happy time for Lalo when he first meets Carolina, but they decide that they're better off if they team up to try and end this ultimate evil.
Gosh, that's a good description. And author, y'all. I'm sitting here and I'm like, as the creator, how would you describe this? And you're like, well, I had a dream, created it. There you go. That's absolutely amazing. And how would you describe A Sinner's Isle?
Sinner's Isle again. Let me think what this is. Sinner's Isle is it's another young adult romantasy, and it follows Rosalinda, who is a majestic. So it basically means she has magic, and so because she has this magic, she and other majestics like her have been banished to this tiny island in the center of the sea, Sinner's Isle. And the only way for these young women with power to get off the island is if they bind their magic to a man of influence, which we
Mm.
hate, obviously. And so does Rosalinda. And so she blackmails this recently marooned pirate, Mariano, to help her and her best friend, Juana, escape. Hijinks ensue. It is chaotic and sometimes funny, very heartfelt, swoony. It's all the things.
Ooh, okay. Speaking of swoon and feelings, um, from a reader's perspective, I'm sure that we can dive a little bit more and ask you all the questions. But Calissa, how did you feel that the emotions kind of were pulled out of you with The Cruel Thirst? Like, tell me a little bit more about how the book made you feel.
Well, first of all, if you go to my Instagram, there's a video of me absolutely sobbing thanks to this book.
Yes.
Good tears. It was happy tears. It was towards the end. But yeah, I think a lot of our discussion just centered around kind of this full range of emotions and how often I think love and pain go hand in hand. And it's just life. So being able to follow the stories and explore that and feel that as a reader, it was beautiful.
That's actually a very beautiful description. Me, on the other hand, like a gremlin, I'm sitting here and I was looking for a book that was gonna fulfill that hole that the originals, the Vampire Diaries, and specifically Eclipse from the Twilight Saga. I was looking for a book that was gonna fit that energy of like, what if Jasper was turned and he didn't want to be? And I'm like, heard. And then I was like, okay, I really liked Klaus's origins. What about the hunters from the Vampire Diaries, like Jeremy? What if we had a female adaptation of that? And you've got that young adult mix. So it's like there is so much like yearning. And like for anyone who's ever like really loved a book character, they meet and you're just like, just kiss. And they're like, no, I hate you, but also no one gets to kill you but me. That's exactly what this book gave. And I was like, everyone says they love enemies to lovers, but this one felt more like they didn't understand each other. And it was more of a, I don't want to use the word miscommunication, but it was more like they came from different places, but ultimately they both love family and they both have very strong characters as people. So it was nice to see like a character act like, where have you been? And the other character's like, I was just doing my thing and trying to help us as a team. And the other person's like, I will literally murder you. And they're like, no, you don't understand. It was that vibe all the time. So when they finally do team up, you're like, yeah. And then there's an ancient god, and you're like, no. So it's just it's such a like adventure, and it had so much like I would kill for you, I would die for you, like Adam's family vibes on that end. So I was like, this is actually super amazing. Yeah, if I had to give this book like a meme that would be perfectly associated with the energy of the characters, is definitely like Adam's family. It's like, what would you do if a man was absolutely obsessed with you? And she's like, I would feel sorry for him. I was like, but what if he loved you? What if he loved you? So it's such a good vibe. But if you're looking for like vampires and yearning and enemies to lovers, I present to you a gem, a gem. And for people who are listening and are not looking at the visuals, the cover is absolutely gorgeous. It has a woman kind of like leaning over a man whose eyes are glowing red. It's like blood dripping down his chin. She's got a dagger to his throat. He's like looking at her. He's like, "Yeah, you look good from this angle, girl." And it's very cute. And they're covered in flowers. And I'm like, oh my god! I DM'd this book cover straight to my friend. I'm like, can we read this together? And then I took T minus forever to read it because college. But it was absolutely what once this picked up, I was like, we're running, we're sprinting. So it was a vibe. I do wonder, where was your inspiration for this book? Like, where did it kind of spring from?
Okay, so this actually came from quite a few different sources. Really and truly, it was part of my book deal for Sinner's Isle was just a 2-book deal. So it was Sinner's Isle and then a book. And so I had no idea what I wanted to write next. I just knew I had to write something. I was trying to write like a Sinner's Isle sequel or prequel, but my publisher was like, how about we try something else? And I was like, okay, fine. And so we were kind of like throwing out different ideas. And my publisher it's called Joy Revolution. And so it's under Penguin Random House. It is the founders are Nicola Yoon and David Yoon, who are amazing authors. And so I believe it was David Yoon who was like, what about vampires? And as soon as he mentioned it, I was like, yes, that's yes. What about vampires? And because who doesn't love vampires? Like I mean, there's so much amazing media about vampires. It's so fun. But we never, or not never, but we don't often see vampires from different lore other than maybe an Eastern European sort of lore. And so I was like, immediately I knew, okay, we have to have Mexican vampires, obviously. And right around that time, I had rewatched The Mask of Zorro. And I was like, this is where vampires need to be. Like they need to be in this, I wouldn't say Wild West, but in this sort of 1830s Alta California, which is still part of the Mexican Empire. It was very secluded, but also, there was a lot of parts happening. And so I thought this is the perfect place for vampires to exist in this world. And I also love, when it comes to that movie in particular, kind of the zaniness.
Mm.
And there's this scene that, if you've seen it, the scene where he's just doing the psh, psh, psh with this
Yeah.
sword, and her whole outfit like comes perfectly off. And I was like, this is what I want in a story. I want like swoon. I want ridiculousness. I want fun, but also really, really heartfelt at the end of the day. And so I started brainstorming ideas with friends, and I was like, okay, he's got to be this like ancient, all powerful vampire, and he's got to be like moody and all these things. And my friend was like, does he? Like, can't we just have a boy be a vampire? And I was like, oh my gosh, yes. And so Lalo came first. He was, as soon as I knew, okay, yes, he's a teenage boy that gets turned into a vampire. What does that look like? And who is he? And who can I create as a female main character that's his polar opposite? And that's where Carolina came from. Okay, if we have a vampire, obviously we have to have a vampire huntress. And if we have this boy who's very like kind of uh kind of like a stick in the mud, kind of wants just to be left alone and read his books, and like be in his library, who are we going to have but somebody who is not going to let him stay there? And so
Mm.
it all just kind of like started like slowly forming into this story. And yeah, so Lalo came first, and the rest is history.
I hear you. I see you. I'm like, Lalo, baby angel, I love you forever. Whenever he would get hurt, I was like, I know he's gonna heal, but like, this is getting really scary. I was like, the vampire who's like, I'm really hungry, but I don't want to like feed. I was like, you're gonna die. He was like, no, no. I was like, it. What? Oh my gosh, Calissa, you said it in the best way. You were talking about like the dichotomy of it, where the female main character is usually the one who's seen as like the one that needs to be protected. You described
Yeah.
how it's flipped on its head. Share it. I loved your point of view when you kind of discussed that more. We were discussing it together.
Yeah, absolutely. Like exactly what Alyssa said, that we were talking about how kind of refreshing it was to have that really strong female main character. And then we do have somewhat of a softer, I mean, well-read, and just like hats off to you for making that still such a delicious, slow burn. Um, and it was refreshing to see how they uh started to change and evolve each other, being such polar opposites. So, and when you were talking earlier about this kind of like zaniness of the setting, I immediately pictured the whole bar scene with Lalo, and when all of a sudden he's, El Patron and everything, and I'm like, you nailed that, absolutely.
Ah, that makes me so happy. It was a scene that I came up with like a little bit later on in the editing process, but it became one of my like the pivotal points for him, I think, in his character development. And a lot had to do with, he just learned it from her kid brother about what it is to like be tough, and like, like this is how you handle a dog, and that's how Lalo learned. You know what I mean? So it's like
Yeah.
he grew. And yeah, that part, thank you for saying that, because it was a really, really fun, I think, moment for him, was
Yeah.
like to learn he can stick up for himself, and he'll be fine. He'll be
Yeah.
okay. Yeah.
Hmm.
Absolutely. I think because it's so common, especially in romantasy, that you have, and especially like vampires, that you have the older, well-experienced man and who's like, I can teach you, don't worry, to the inexperienced female. So the fact that we have a vampire who is thinking, okay, what would Carolina do in this situation? I think that was just really refreshing to read.
Yay. That
I
makes
did want to ask y'all, like, what did you love about them as a couple and as friends and as
me
enemies?
everything. I loved everything about them. I thought they were great. I think for me, like, I do love how different they were. And I think they kind of enjoyed that about each other towards the end when they weren't really annoying each other.
Yeah.
Um, but I think like him, both of them being allowed to be themselves was really a beautiful thing. But at the end of the day, as different as they are, they really and truly just love their family so, so, so much that they're willing to do whatever. And I think that really bonded them. And like surprisingly poetry as well, which you might not think. You're looking at Carolina, who's out here just like ready to battle anybody, but she also loves to read too. She is learned, she's out here. And I think it was a fun thing for them to bond over. So I think them both being able to learn from each other, and to learn to, um, again, like be comfortable in their own skin, but also it's okay to also change. And for her, like leaning on each other, which on another person, which she didn't want to do when she was like when we first meet her. So I think they really balanced each other out in some ways. And I love their banter. It was really fun to write.
Hmm. Okay, cool, cool, cool. Is there anything else that you want to share about kind of the overall storyline of A Cruel Thirst? Was there anything looking back you're like, I wanted to add this scene, or one of your favorite moments while writing that's like, you can't say too much, but if you could give like sprinkles of description. Also, please, both of you feel free to chime in. Favorite like written moments, like that made you feel something. I know we're doing non-spoiler, but I think there is a way to say like, hey, I really loved how you wrote this, or how did this scene when you describe it make you feel? Like something you looked forward to reading, like readers experiencing. I have one, but it's like, is it a
Okay.
spoiler? Un poquito. But I'm sitting here, I'm like, okay. There's a fierce female main character when they're in pain, like when they've been holding back for so long, and finally something like kind of breaks and makes them like emotionally open up. There is a scene we get to see someone who's been like the strongest sibling, the person who's been like really fighting to be understood and be like seen and like validated as a woman in the family. You finally see her like break down about something relating to grief. And you see the love interest able to kind of step in and be like, I'm here for you as a friend, but also like, I've also experienced this loss and I'm here for you. And for me, that was a very natural transition from like enemies to lovers to more like lover, like friends to lovers a little bit more. So that was really nice. If you hear Midnight crying in the background, I swear to God, he's fine. He just wants treats. He's not starving. He really
I
just
didn't
wants
realize
treats.
that was Midnight. I thought that was a child in the background.
No, that is a cat.
Midnight is really
My
passionate
son.
about sharing his favorite
He just
moment
wants
from the book as
treats.
well.
That is all he wants. I keep muting myself and I'm like, my son. He's like, I just want treats.
He
But
said
yeah, he just
smile.
wants treats.
That's
He's hungry
hilarious.
for attention. You know,
Yeah,
it's tough.
I
But
thought there
yes,
was a child back there. It's a cat.
no, that's my cat. Sorry for listeners who are like, what is that? What is that irritating sound? I'm like, that's my son. But it's just my cat crying out for treats. But yes, if there's any scenes you guys can describe where you're like, ugh, this really hit, or this really made me feel something, it's okay to share it. We can give a little spoiler alert. Hey, spoiler alert, and then we'll be okay. But yeah, there is a scene, spoiler alert, where someone dies and the love interest is like, I swear I will find you in the afterlife. I will pull you back here. And I was like, it's intensity. I need it. So yes. But are there any scenes you guys would describe?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. This
I'm
cat is
sorry.
sending Midnight is sending me, and I love
Nine
it.
Eye. He's
It-
staring back at me too. He's like, do you gonna give it to me? No, you have kidney issues.
I'm losing it.
He
I am
knew. He
losing it
knew
over this.
to
The
wait
vet is
until
like,
we started.
I can't keep giving you treats. You have kidney issues.
Oh, and
He's just staring at me.
oh
It's
man.
fine.
He
He's
knew
in the
to
middle of
wait
his hand.
until the recording started. He was like, now, go.
Oh,
What is she gonna do?
can't give you treats anymore.
Oh, that makes me so happy. That makes me
He's
so happy.
he's a lot. Yeah, he's fine now. He's gonna be fine. If I mute myself at any point, you're like, "Are you okay?" I'm fine. Drama queen over here is
Oh,
wants
man,
treats. He's like,
Rough
"I'll risk it
life.
all." I'm like, "Okay." So, but
comedic relief.
yes,
I freaking love that. Okay, so favorite scenes for me, non-spoilery. Gosh, I feel like there's scenes that really and truly brought me so much joy to write. There's a scene with a pan, which I know is going to might sound random, but there's a scene where there's a cousin and she's a pan wielding sidekick. And that really brought me joy to write. That really brought me joy to write. Um, there's also like like a lead up to a duel, and they're just for me the banter that these two main characters yap like on the way up to this duel was really fun to write. I think anytime they're together, I just had so much joy writing them. But there is a scene, uh, and it's kind of like around the end as well. And these two have just gone, like him in particular. He goes through so much in this book. This poor man, he just wants to just live his life with his little mustache, and he just wants to be just in his library. But he's just gone through so much, and he kind of has this point where he kind of just like enough, and he's just like ah. And you kind of, for me, like I felt this like break of like, oh, I've been holding it together for so long for my sister, for whoever. I've been holding it together. Like, what else? Like, why is this like, why is everything bad happening? And she kind of offers this like olive branch of like, well, if you're losing hope, like allow me to hope for you, like allow me to be there for you. And I just really, really love that, because I do think, we think like we need to stay positive all the time and we need to like keep going all the time. But really, life is so hard. And like there's so many like things that happen in this world on the daily where you're just like, oh, like you feel like you lose a little hope. But that's what you have friends and your loved ones there for, is to like offer that hand, or just like let you lean on them. And so that to me, I was like, you did it, girl. Like you wrote that.
You did write that.
Yes, you did.
You went off. Even the villain character. It's a full-blown spoiler talk now. Fuck it. It's not the point. Me, I'm gonna hold back. Actually, I am not. So
Alyssa said, I cannot.
I said, I'm gonna give it my best shot. 20 minutes later. All right, it's cheat day, donuts, love, fighting, joy, book shopping. Let's go. It's treat yourself. But it's hard to discuss your books and how much it was such a bonding moment to be able to share with a friend, reading a book and discussing it together. So now having the opportunity to talk to the author, Angela, you were such a joy. It makes me so excited to be like, this poetic line you shared, these sad moments that you chose to highlight. You chose to highlight the siblings. You chose to highlight the father and his concern, and he wasn't being controlled, and he was just very concerned. And like, yes, there may have been a little bit of like mansplaining there, but he's also just a dad. He's just a man. So it was there was a lot going on. I was gonna say non-spoiler, but F it. Why the heck not? I alluded to it earlier. I said you killed off someone we all know. It's the grandpa. We all know. You killed him off in the most heinous way possible. I'm so proud of you. Bing bam boom. That man's on the ground. You did that. It was way more emotional, listeners. It was not like I got stabbed. I'll walk it off. No, this man got attacked. He got attacked. And I was like, for anyone who loves their grandparents, this is tough. This is tough.
Yeah.
So yes, for someone who is traumatized by this experience deeply, I love my grandma, but someone who is traumatized by this experience deeply, I'm looking at you, my friend, to describe that scene and your reaction to him in the beginning and grandpa in the end. I'm sorry. I'm serving you on a plate. I'm sorry.
Not surprising. Incredibly close to my grandparents. Incredibly close. My grandpa, shout out, visits me every Saturday. Alyssa has been able to meet him. He came with me. He came with me to a dark romance convention. Like,
Amazing.
it's great bonding together.
He was very sweet.
Um, I think the death was shocking to read. Obviously, you're not expecting that right off the bat, and you're like, okay, I see what's happening here. Really for me, the more touching part was towards the end when Lalo goes and he sees him up in, El Cielo, and just kind of this he gives the message of just like, like let her know I'm okay and we're gonna be here. And I just think as someone who has been very lucky to not experience death yet, and I'm aware that that'll happen someday, just having that reassurance felt so special. And so like that cracked me like a glow stick. And it was so sweet. And I think something that I would take into my personal life of like just knowing like it's okay and we'll be together someday and it was just a beautiful moment for especially like to add the layer of as we've talked about having a family like uh, um a culture where family is so strong, like that is the thing. So being able to know that you'll be reacquainted and you'll be together, like it was just beautiful.
Thank you. And yes, I bawled my eyes out when I wrote that, when I edited it, when I like anytime I even thought about it.
Yeah.
Like I honestly and truly, it was very hard, very sad, but very like cathartic to write. Because I have lost both my grandfathers. One of my grandfathers in particular was like my dad.
Mm.
And so I think I needed this like reassurance myself of like feeling like, no, they're still here. And in my office, when I was writing that, so I have an altar in my office, an ofrenda where I have all of my like loved ones. And so like I always feel like they're right there when I'm writing this
Wow.
stories. And so like I knew that all of them were there as I was writing this, and I was like, thank you. Like we're here, we're all still here. It's fine.
Yeah.
Because it truly is like I think well for many of us, I think it's like the biggest fear of the unknown. And so
Mhm.
I just needed to know. And so I wrote what I hoped is going is going to be. And I think we needed that. I think many of us did. And it's interesting though, when I wrote it, or like as more and more readers have read it, that was the kind of this his character was the character that really and truly stood out and like really touched so many hearts. And I think because we all have had that special somebody that, we all the family members we love, but there's that one person that just really gets you,
Mhm.
and so that's like always the one that you're searching for in the sky. And so yeah, I think we needed a moment where the boys could get together.
Yes,
That's beautiful.
absolutely. Yeah.
That was like, even your answer was beautifully written. I'm sitting here and I'm like, I was gonna ask the question, but I don't think I should. I was like, oh no. Also, all jokes aside, I'm so sorry for
Yeah.
your loss. So thank you for pouring your emotions into your book because it could be universally felt. Um, and there was a lot of respect and discussion of like grief. It wasn't mentioned briefly in the book. It was intertwined with the story.
Mm,
Um, I also thought it was interesting how you also highlighted the father figure as well. You didn't just touch on oh, he's controlling. You could
yeah.
tell like there was something else going on. Same thing with the mom. Like she's like the nature of their families that they are hunters, yes, but like her worst fear is losing one of her children. So that's why they train so hard. That's why she doesn't want her daughters or her babies going out there. But you also like I said, we're discussing spoilers. So I do want to touch on something I thought you built so beautifully was this concept of like generational trauma, all of these secrets kind of being buried and how that impacted the future of their family as not just
Mhm.
hunters, but like as people, this sense of like fear. I thought the reveal of the daggers was so interesting. Just this concept of like, okay, who created them? This is the point, we should protect the town. It's like, well, who created them? It's like, well, they created themselves. And I'm like, that's not an answer. So it was cool how he was more the academic one, and she was the one who just really wanted to protect. Even the
Mhm.
scene where she goes back to find her little brothers were playing, and her first thought was like, "Oh my god, like the house was attacked." And as a big sister, I'm sitting here and I'm like, my worst fear is that like you weren't there. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So it's like like the description of these like monstrous creatures and the lore behind them and the poetry, the letters describing people who had to like tried to save their loved ones, but it was too late. I was like, Ooh, it's giving Stefan from the Vampire Diary. He's like, I was the Ripper, but also I love my family, but also I have to like, you're gonna turn. I can't let you turn. I'm like, this is amazing. I was curious while writing the letters throughout the book. Do you kind of have an image of your mind while writing like a movie, or is it more like the story reveals itself?
Mm. For me, like when I write, I totally see everything like in a movie form. Like I'm like, okay, this scene would look so good on the screen. Make this a series. This is going to be great here. Yeah,
Mhm.
I picture it all like, um, and so I like, and that's what I try to write is like I try to
Mm,
write it as dynamic as I would see it like on the screen. It's probably hard to do. I don't. Um, I probably would want to try even to do it better, but like I really and truly like see it like rolling in my head. And yeah, so all of like the little letters and like little bits of information, the poetry, all of these things, I kind of see it as like those are all like Lalo's things that he found while he was, trying
mm,
to figure out where this vampire figure out vampirism, like because he had no idea what it was when he first saw his first vampire. And so all of those notes, I just imagined him like before the book even, before we met him, down in the library, like taking notes, because he's not going to rip that paper out because he respects books, but he's taking notes, so like I had a lot of scenes in my head play out before I wrote anything, and a lot of the scenes that are in my head were never on page. And
mm.
so yeah, I think but to me that's always like the fun part is kind of coming up with the lore, the backstory, trying to understand everybody before the book even begins, and then you build from there. And yeah, like I always just think of like, okay, what does this family look like before we meet them? They're still like they're still chaotic, they're still, loud, and there's all these things happening. On top of being vampire hunters, they also are ranchers. So they're dealing with cattle. So, like I just had all of these like thoughts, and it was really fun to kind of figure it all out and do the research of what life would look like back in this time, even though it's a fictional world in A Cruel Thirst, but it's based off, real world. So yeah, it's really fun to
Ooh.
put all the layers are fun.
I love all the
And
layers as well. Since we are having a non like a spoiler discussion, I wanted to ask both of you, what were your two favorite scenes in the book? And when you think about those scenes, like why are they your favorite? Me, I'm a dark girly. So I was here for like all the like big villain moments. I love romance, but I was here for the villain. When you hear the description of an ancient vampire who the lore has been building around him, and you see him come out of his cave and it's covered in like the bones of all his like victims, and he still looks like he's in his like mid 20s. I'm sitting here and I'm like, Taylor Lautner, what are you doing here? My first thought, they were like, he's young, he's good looking, he's in a billowy white shirt, he's dirty, and he's a murderer. I was like, hey, Loca. I was like, I was like, he has to come out of the darkness and
uh,
he needs to like make a statement. And I was like, I want it big, Beyonce. But it had to be Taylor
you
Lautner.
said
I was like, he has to be beautiful, but also like have an angular face and be kind of like he could switch at a drop of a hat. I'm like, Taylor Lautner, give him a chance. But the way Taylor Lautner runs out of the woods in New Moon, you're telling me right now that if he didn't run out of a cave covered in bones, you wouldn't be like, oh my god, it had to be Taylor Lautner.
yeah.
There's a vision in my mind. And the author's like, I'm not visually. You're gonna see it too. Just give it a chance.
I see it. I see
Yeah.
it. I can never unsee it.
Thank God.
Even if I wanted to, I could never. And like someday, please, universe, listen. If there is a film adaptation, like I will have nobody else.
Thank God.
Yeah,
Give
Thank
him
Taylor
a
you.
is it.
chance. Give him a chance. I'm just saying, like, he had to be a husband who missed his wife. He's been feeding, but like he doesn't want to. But like, oh, he's just so old and good looking.
Yeah.
Ah, he
You
had to
know
be
what
Taylor
came
Lautner.
up for me? Hocus Pocus, when she's like, Zachary Binks. He's been the cat forever.
Yeah.
I thought the same thing. I was like, Zachary Binks, the billowy white shirt, you just can't.
Yeah.
That's a good, but he was beautiful. He was a good man, a good man.
Yeah.
No.
That's how we know you're from the like 1600s.
He's in
Like
a
you were
cave full of
old.
bones. He's walking on bones in his billowy white shirt. That's so dark. Him, who are you? Who are you? You caused all this mayhem.
All of it. Caused it all.
Yes. Iconic scene, though. Iconic. Them dancing with the chickens in the dark under the beautiful stars. All of a sudden, I see a redhead. What was that? What was that? Iconic for her to meet the killer of her lover's parents at a party in her house. The call is coming from inside the house. Why would you do this? There's children around. I was so scared. I had to close the book for a second because I was like, she said, did I eat your parents? Yes. She didn't even deny it. When he found her in the first chapter,
she said, they're
she said, I did that. Scrumdiddly yum yum. She went, I would tip too. I was like, oh my God. His mom's heel got like stuck in cobblestone, and the dad was like, I'll help you, my love. And the next thing you know, he's Chick-fil-A. They're eating him up. It was really bad. And then their son's watching in the window, traumatized. It was a lot. I'm sitting here and they're like, aren't you describing the death of two parents? He was Batman. He was Batman real quick, but he was pretty rich. He was rich, he was traumatized, and he has an education. He's Batman.
Oh my gosh, you're right. You are absolutely right. I didn't even.
He's a rich boy with emotional problems.
He is Batman.
Can't fight. Can't fight. And he falls in love with Catwoman, aka tell me I'm wrong.
Blown. My mind is blown right now.
I don't know. You're still original. I will say this. You are still original. I'm just saying. Is he a rich boy with emotional trauma seeking love from a beautiful woman?
Spoiler. Yes.
Alyssa is the queen at giving like the best imagery and just connecting dots where you're like, oh yeah.
Who knows what my thesis will be about? Something crazy.
I'm gonna need you to read my next book coming out because I do not know how to explain it. I don't know how to talk about it because like it's so new and I'm like, I don't know what it's about. I tried to explain the premise in an interview, and I was like, oh, here's the backstory, and then this and this, and she was like, okay, and I was like, oh, but they're childhood sweethearts that hate each other now, and she's like, lead with that.
Start there.
Okay, thank you.
Oh wow.
Yeah, Alyssa could give you a 1-sentence summary that it would nailed it.
I have to.
Childhood romance, circus, darkness, yearning, good writing, good world building. You won't be able to stop until you're finished.
Period.
Purchase it. I'm sorry.
She's like, I think I can fit you in my schedule. Let me check. I'll get back to you.
Knowing there's a circus involved, I was like, there's only one person I know who will love this hardcore. And I sit here. Is it romantasy? Is there a circus? There's only one girlie I know who will devour this whole, and she's right there. I'm like, yeah, that's your ish.
I'm obsessed. I was very lucky. My grandpa, back when you could get like Netflix on like DVD, you could get Cirque du Soleil DVDs. And I saw that as a child and I was like, so I'd like to do that. Obviously didn't. Heartbreaking, I know, but the circus holds a special part of my heart.
Yeah. No,
it's pretty cool.
It's so interesting. There's so much like lore in and of itself when it comes to the circus. I did a bunch of research as well for this book. And the circus has its bad moments as well. It was very racist, very ableist. There's a lot of things, but also there is this sort of like mysterious magic about the circus, and so it's can't say we look past those things because I don't think you can, especially when like you read and understand the history of it, but there still is this like mysterious, and it's always kind of grimy at the same time, and there's like,
Yeah.
there's like a little bit of tarnish amongst the sheen,
Yeah.
and that's what I wanted to
Yeah.
capture.
I
Was like,
think
oh,
it's a good metaphor for society who tends to like overlook things for general entertainment. But we actually, so I'm in the like Bradenton, Sarasota area. So we have the Ringling Museum where he used to like live, and you can
Oh
go
wow.
tour the house and everything. Oh yeah, I've been there too many times. But yes,
cool.
it's a whole thing.
That's
Ooh. Ooh. My first thought when I think circus is like, if it's all a performance, then how do you know love is real? Like, how do you know the love of the act is real if you're always performing? So I'm like, I don't know. When I, be aware, I love to read. So my brain is like, what if the story went in this direction? I think there's something about like seeing someone
Subplots.
in a cage and you're just thinking, well, it's a performance, right? Like this is their what they're doing for the performance's sake. The idea of like being trapped in love, or like this concept of like the opposite of love is possession, to possess beauty, to possess someone's like skill, like I own this, I own you. It's no longer love. So the concept of someone being like, I see you in this cage and I don't necessarily want to free you is ultimately darker than the act of a circus. It's all a performance, it's a service. So it's one of those things where it's like, what if it's not a service? What if someone's trying to get out and someone else is like, I want to love you, but you're obviously in a toxic situation. There's something about that where it's like, it's a game, but it's not. Like, race also plays a role where in my mind I think of like The Greatest Showman. I couldn't necessarily get into it because all I could think about was like people of color were already marginalized to begin with. So this concept of like there is no getting out, when we're out together we will be judged, like that breaks my heart. So it was hard to pay attention to the music and the dance because all I could think about was like it's already hard enough, you know what I mean, like being different in a world that thinks that you are the entertainment. So this concept of trying to build love in a world where you're already being judged on and off stage is like, how can love survive in that? So through books, we're able to escape, but like the real life reality is very harsh. So
no, it's shitty. It's
it's pretty shitty.
yeah,
It's pretty shitty.
yes, indeed. And I think honestly, when I write my stories, I'm very purposeful in how I represent race. It's not something like it's not that it's not an issue or a topic, but I just want my characters to just exist in this world where they're meant to be here. And same as well with my characters that are LGBTQIA. Like I
Yes.
purposefully not make it a thing where, again, not that it's a thing. Like for me, it's just who you are, and it's just the world we live in. Like people should just be allowed to exist and love. And so when it's in A Cruel Thirst, we meet two side characters, and
Yes.
they're kind of my two, like some of my favorite characters, and they hook up, and it's like a little sapphic side romance, and there's
Yes.
not an issue, no one's saying anything because they should just be allowed to be who they are. And so yeah, I'm like very purposeful in just like, let's just be, damn it. And of course there's books that talk about these issues, and we need those books. But I did want, like, for these books in particular, I wanted readers to just feel like swept away in like, we're allowed to be here, we're allowed to be main characters, we're allowed to be the heroes and to have our love stories, and it shouldn't be an issue, damn it.
Yes. Me sitting here, Black, gay, and a reader. I'm like, hell yeah. There's a scene in the book where I'm like, they're found in bed together. Like, okay. So like there is a younger sister who from the very beginning, my man's like, I've been turned into a vampire. I have to go home, be there for my sister. It opens the door. Sister, where have you? She's like the tea kettle from Beauty and the Beast. Where have you been? That's the, she doesn't care that he's covered in blood. She doesn't care that his shirt is ripped. She's like, I'm home alone. My parents just died, and I'm struggling here, man. It's a tough time. And he's just like, I just got turned. I might eat you, but I don't want to eat you. And she's like, what do you mean by that? So it's just it immediately turns. But the fact that like she ends up developing feelings for the female main character's cousin, and they're found in bed together, and the female main character's like, I'm happy for you guys, but also our pretty much like our nanny like slash nanny, family member is gonna bust through the door in 2 minutes. Oh, she's super religious. Oh, and they're like, right, let's change dresses, ruffle. Even just the scene where he has to write his sister like a letter where he's like not sure he's gonna come back from this, like, I gotta beat up Taylor Lautner who's standing on a pile of bones in the cave. He's like, I might not survive this, sister. He writes a letter, his bum ass. He writes a letter like, I may not come back, but I'll always love you, sister. I'm doing this for you. And she, when I tell you, when he comes back and she's like, why, immediate slap. Why would you write that letter? Rude. Lost my parents already. Batman, you are so self-centered. You emotional prick. And he's like, I was going to sacrifice myself for you. And I died. And she's like, she's like, happy you're alive. Also, you're human. He's like, I'm human now. I'm even more vulnerable. And I'm just like, this is great. He was already accident prone before. Now my man's, he's human. But even just when she used to say goodbye to her mom, her mom, I love you. I love you. And she's like, goodbye, mom. Her mom's like, okay. In her mind, she's like, this is the last time I'm ever going to see my mom again. I was like, we're risking it all. We're risking it all. Did anyone else have a feeling like I read that and I was like, my mom would teleport so fast. If she found out, like, you're going, huh? You're going where? I'm a grown woman. And I'm sitting here and I'm like, I just feel like that for me, I was like, fiction. I was like, for anyone who has like like a grandma or a mom or a godmother or someone who's like, they can tell the change in your tone and they're like, where are you going? It's like, nowhere. And then all of a sudden, something's wrong. You're going to fight Taylor Lautner, who's standing on a pile of bones. And I'm like, maybe I am. You know, so I'm gonna find a photo of Taylor Lautner, and I'm just gonna try to put like a shirt on him or something, and put him on a pile of bones. And it's
there like, yes, a billowy shirt for sure, please.
100. Yeah. Like, what is it, Darcy coming out of the lake? It's beautiful and romantic, but it's gonna be Taylor Lautner like coming out of the cave. Yeah, it's just bones. And it's like, also, I killed your vampire daughter, and I fell through the floor into your cave house. It sounds insane, but the way you wrote it was like, how could this situation get worse? And it was like, my man's burnt. There's demon dogs chasing him. They slept together on the leaves for the first time, but there's like demon dogs chasing him. She's covered in blood and mud. Like, but they slept together, it's beautiful and intimate and like wholesome. And it's just my mom thinks I'm on a walk, getting ice cream. There's a lot going on. My mom's pregnant. Like, my dad's upset. I lost my grandma. It's been rough. Every single thing they could go through.
There was a lot going on.
Yeah. When you list it, it's like, what am I living for? They're actually they're gonna risk their lives. My love interest is dead. I'm screaming at this guy. Like, it's really Taylor Lautner staring at me through the cave. Like, it's really bad.
Yep. When you put it that way,
you know what? Yeah, I'm like, it's okay though. I trusted that you were gonna end the story in a beautiful way, and you did. And I was like, thank God. But now look at your other book, and I'm like, I'm sensing a pattern. I think I'm in trouble. I'm like, my therapy bills, help. So yes, it's going to be tough. But speaking of, I feel like we've shown a lot of love to A Cruel Thirst. I have not read your other book because I'm praying I could pace myself. So when your next book comes out, I won't be left with nothing. But I have no self-control. So I'm probably going to read it this summer. And I'm going to read with my friend. We're going to read it together. But I want you to tell me a little bit more about your inspiration for Sinner's Isle. And I guess I'm just, what are you going to warn me for emotionally? Like, is there a best friend who's getting killed off? Is there a dragon who has real personality who you're also going to kill off? Like, I just need to know when you wrote this, what do you want readers to know about it?
Yes, everyone dies in this book. Every single person. No. It's not true. It's not true. People do, but I think you'll be okay with it. I think
Okay.
you'll be okay with it. When my inspiration for Sinner's Isle, and it's kind of terrible, but also whatever. So it was during, I was going to say a different presidency, but we're back to the same presidency. So I wrote it during the first presidency, and I was at a time, we're still there again, where like a woman's right to do with whatever with her body was in question. Her choice to like control what happened to her body was in question. And so obviously that was just like playing heavy on my heart, on my mind. It was there, was not going away. And then this like image of this young, beautiful woman being prepared for something popped into my head. So like I'm very visual, like I mentioned, like when I write, I see like these like film rolls in my head. So this image of her being prepared for something that she didn't want and she couldn't control what was happening. She just kind of had to grin and bear it. And so that came into my head and I started thinking, okay, well, what is it? And then I just started playing with this idea of like, okay, she has magic. And so because of this magic, obviously it's something people covet because not everybody has magic. And like who's going to covet that the most? The men, because they want that magic. And so like I just slowly started building like, okay, then it's all of these young girls that start showing this magic. And again, these men are very intimidated by it because we're going to what? We could rule the world. What? We don't want that, right? And let's banish them. Let's find a way to control them. Let's find a way to silence them. And so I started building this world, and then the island and why they were kept there, all the lore behind it. And then in my head also I saw like a picture of these two like scoundrel pirates popping onto that island. And I knew exactly who they were right away. And I can't tell you who they are, but I knew exactly their backstories and who they were going to be to her. Um, and so then I just started building this world. And so, yeah, when I think there's like a really fun twist in this that a lot of people never see coming. And it always makes me so happy when someone's like in my DMs screaming, like, I had no idea. Yes, yay. So yeah, I think go into it. I don't know. just ready to have fun. I don't know.
You did a perfect description of that, may I add. As like coming in here as the unhinged girly that I am, I'm like, that's an awesome description. Like I was already gonna like, I hold back from reading it, but now I'm like, oh, I really have no self-control now. So,
I shan't.
yeah, like yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah, so excited also that is going to be the title of my life memoir is The Men Want My Magic.
It brings all the men to the yard. As someone who supports that nation, I always say like, what, or are you gay? I'm like, I support the nation. I support that nation. I support the straights. I support y'all. You know, I see you. And they're like, what about you? I'm like, that's not my nation. I'm visiting. I got a passport. I visit my friends.
It's rough over here.
Yeah, I'm sexuality is fluid, bro. I'm like, I'll support the nation. Yeah, like men want her magic. I'm like, what if the women just rule the world? I'm like, yeah, I don't see a problem with that. We don't start wars, we end them. What do you mean?
Wouldn't that be so nice?
Wouldn't that be nice? I'm like, wouldn't that be great if we didn't take over? But you know what? It's actually totally okay because it's gonna be all right. I have to believe it's gonna be all right. I'm like, it's gonna be okay. So I'm sitting here. I'm like, as long as we can read your books and there's a safe space to read and there's a safe space to write creatively and like your books are accessible to everyone, that means the world to me. And I think that books are so powerful. An idea can spark a lot. Fiction, nonfiction ideas are important. Conversations are important. There was a line from a book that I read recently, and it made me think of like the female main characters that you write, where it's like, on what bones do people create a new future? Like, on what do you build this great world from? Like, because it's not from scratch, that's for sure. Like, someone was here before you, And of course, the great Keanu Reeves, where he's like, someone said, like, you can't be a lover and a fighter. He's like, well, you have to be a fighter because you have to fight for love. I was like,
Period.
I love a
That's
traumatized man with long hair, bro. I'm serious.
that's
I
and that's
love him.
what I love about misconceptions about reading of they're like, so you're just over there reading your porn, your little smut, like, oh, that's cute. And I'm like, I am reading about toppling the powers that be, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Corruption, abuse of power. Don't even get
Mm-hmm.
me started.
Oh,
Heck,
yes.
yes.
Every time I see the argument, and I get it, I get it. We love reading because we do love to escape. We do like it's a beautiful thing. However, when we're reading these stories, there is like deeper themes in the stories that you can learn from and understand and be like, "Oh, I hate that. I hate how politics, this world is built. We don't love that." So there is like I don't think there's anything I don't think you can say reading isn't political because
Mm.
you read a story written by a woman alone, that's political. You think I was at a writers conference with Debbie Maycumber, um,
Ooh.
and she has written romance since like the 70s. What she was saying was like in that time, women could only write romance. Like that was all we could do. That was the only way we were going to sell books. They didn't take us seriously enough to write the whatever it was. And so we wrote the romance. But in every romance book, there is some sort of lesson learned. There's something that you're taking away from it. And there's a power in romance. There's power in the words that women write. And like I personally love that we've like taken on romantasy and maybe people that aren't maybe I'm going to say men do not take us seriously, but I could care less because there's so much power in the things that we're writing and learning together, and they can hop on board, but we're going to just keep going. you know
Ugh, I got
Yes.
chills. I love talking about
That was
this.
badass. I'm like, we need different perspectives of. I think that women's minds are so creative and complex and like unique and sacred. Like there's a magic there to me that's like it's hard to describe to other people. Where it's like you read a book and it's like, well, it's words on a page. But for me, I'm like, but I see it in my mind, like a movie. You know what I mean? Like it's there, it's present. Um, and for a woman to be able to question, like, why can't I fight with you? What is the lore? What are these monsters we're fighting? Where do they come from? This concept of like just obey, just follow the rules. It's like, but if we don't ask questions, we just become like monsters ourselves. Like we're just taking over and we're just destroying. We're not questioning anything. Like you're not including other cultures. I just that's where my mind is like, who's the monster now? Like
yeah
who's
yeah
taking over now?
yeah no, it
And
makes
yeah.
me think of again back to like Sinner's Isle. I didn't realize it at the time when I was writing it, but after like during revisions, I realized so the main character Rosalinda, like she's fighting to maintain or to get control over her body, over what she can do. There is a character, her name's Doña Lucia, and she is basically like the governess or like the ruler of the Majestics on the land.
Ooh.
And at one point in her life, she lost her power. Like she lost what she was allowed to do with her body. She lost her freedom. And instead of fighting, she accepted. And not only did she accept it, but she became the girl's like oppressor in many ways.
Ooh.
And so, she lost her voice. Instead of fighting for it, she grew quiet and bow down. And so like I didn't realize the parallels between these two of like what happens if you stop fighting versus what happens if you keep going no matter what. And so yeah, those were some interesting things that I was like, damn, I didn't know I was I did not mean to, but I'm glad I did.
Let her cook. I'm sitting here and I'm like,
Mhm.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, there's so much to that. I remember that there was a book mentioned during our book talk about your story. I think it's like Women Run with Wolves. It was a book that you were discussing reading, and I'm just sitting here and I'm like, there's just there's certain books that like you find out, like you mentioned it to your mom, you mentioned it to your grandma, and they say like, oh, I read that when I was your age, right? I read that when I was in college, and it's like learning like the lore from A Cruel Thirst, and learning that even the villainous character, like she, spoiler alert, ends up she was part of the family. Like she goes way back, and she lost herself to the hunger. And like when they fed on these people, they saw all their memories. So if you have a lot of good memories, of course you're gonna feed more. But for me, I'm just like, while reading your book, the parallels are interesting. But like while reading your book, for anyone who's seen the film Sinners recently, spoiler
Yes.
alert, there are similarities. I was like, ooh, yeah. I read your book during my anniversary. I finished it and I was like, oh, so good. I was telling my partner all about it. They were like, sounds really traumatizing. I'm like, no, it's amazing. You don't understand. So I was the guy with all the red strings. I was like, it all connects. So I was trying to describe it all. But then we saw Sinners later, and I was like, both of these books discuss culture and your ancestors and the pain that comes with like vampires and this sense of like feeding and consumption and like I will take over. It's like an illness that spreads. But you could say the same thing about like cultural appropriation. You could say the same thing about power. Like the only difference between the vampires and the humans in both that film and your book is this concept of like who's in control and like losing yourself to this hunger. And like I think the spookiest part was not their physical, but was like the way that they lost themselves essentially to like this hunger, this thirst, if you will. So I was like, oh, it's not this sexy vampire element where it's like I'm in control and you know I 100% understand what I'm experiencing and I don't miss my past life. It wasn't like that. Like there was a lot of like pain and like sadness and like this sense of like, oh, I just felt like his grief was eating him alive, but also like this self-hatred was eating him alive. And all the letters that you wrote and like the history behind it, I just couldn't help but feel like there must have been a reason, like all the people whose loved ones like they were trying to save them and there was just no saving them and like they were getting turned away and like it all goes back to Taylor Lautner and even his origin story with his wife. Like you don't like her body being found in the woods and then she rises again and you get it from secondhand accounts. I was like, did he bite her with the intention of turning her or did he bite her because he was so hungry? And my girl was like, I'm alive. Then she was no longer alive. So I was curious about your choice with that. They didn't end up together on the physical world. They ended up together in the spiritual world. I was very curious why you chose that.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember.
It's okay because they were together in the spirit world. They were together in the spirit world, you know.
Yes.
But
I feel like he lost his control, and she was there, and it was her blood that kind of resurrected him in the first place, and so that was what really was like also the thing that helped him, I guess, like lose control was the very thing that brought him back was a thing to sort of ruin him in many ways, but he lost control because she was her blood was like inside of him at that point already because of the ritual she did to bring him out. So yeah, I think he just completely lost it. He was like, girl, you look good. Snack.
And that's why we don't mess around with the things we're not supposed to be messing around with.
Ooh. Exactly. If we were going to connect it back to Sinners, I think it's really cool as well, like Southern Gothic, and then you also have like Hispanic lore. And there's just like culturally, when you really think about it, I'm like, every culture has this like lore.
Yes.
Indigenous communities lore. Like there's a lot of like stories that get passed down for so long, you forget like the origins of that story. And I think it's so cool, this concept of like, what if vampires existed through all this lore? They're just called different things. Same thing with witches. Like there's all this lore and just different languages and these barriers. People aren't listening, so they don't connect the dots. Yeah. And it's like, ooh, it's kind of it's interesting. Like if these creatures were alive, I guess they would just be kind of hidden in plain sight. Like even the first chapter of your book with The Cruel Thirst is like he walks into a club not realizing he's going into a nest of vampires. even just him turning, it reminded me of like Interview with a Vampire a little bit. Like, I'm gonna lock you in this room. My intention is for you to suffer. And then he breaks out and he kills all her vampire kids. And it's very like, but he was so hungry. And it's just one of those things where I'm like, if you just gave him a snackable, it would have been okay. But no, trauma, Batman, vampires. I need to get home. There's no Ubers. Like, it's tough. It's tough.
Right.
But you
And
wrote it so well.
that's like a whole nother level too of like hurt people, and how that just tends to spread and infect and pass on when you don't kind of deal with what you got going on.
So good, so good. The dots are all connecting. I do want to say last question before we end the episode for both of you. What is your favorite part of reading, and what do you feel like reading brings to the world?
Yeah, I think for me, like, I think reading does bring empathy. I think it like breeds empathy. Like, you can't, or I mean, I suppose you could, but like every time you're reading, especially if you read diversely and you read widely, you're learning so much about the world that's all around you, truly. So I that's kind of my favorite thing to read. Like we mentioned, talking about like vampires, there's so many versions of vampire lore across the globe that we don't see until like more recently. So we're getting to see a diverse like look at vampires, and like look what that brings. It brings something so new and so fresh and like so different. So I think like for me, like reading widely is so beautiful and powerful, and I really wish more people did that. I really do, because it's a beautiful thing.
That's actually a beautiful description. I want your answer, my friend.
Yeah, I mean, tacking onto that, what you said about empathy, I think those are my favorite moments in books, is when you are sucked in, you are so fully immersed in what's going on in this world and being able to understand someone else's grief or situation. And I think that's what I love about like fantasy in general, is that like it is generally things that we will not and cannot experience in our realms, sadly, and to still be able to understand and relate those themes back to very much what we're dealing with in so many different ways. There's so many different levels that we can bring it back to our everyday lives. But yeah.
Ooh. I feel like the best part of reading for me was like being able to go from like a shy kid to being able to find like heroes, and like to being able to see like, you know, there are love stories out there where like you can be different and still end up with like your knight in shining armor, be it a woman, a man, or whoever. Like that can exist like in a bookish world. Like, it's okay. Where versus in the real world, people have their own opinions, and when you don't know, it's scary. Like when people tell you like this is wrong or this can't exist. Versus in the book world, like there can be, Harry, someone who is incredibly bullied and hurt and harmed. The author may suck, but the book itself may have taught someone that like this dark period of time you're living in is not forever. There's a Hogwarts for everyone. Even though I don't support J.K. Rowling, I do support this concept, this world she built, that people took that fantasy world and branched off and became authors themselves and wrote better worlds. You know what I mean? And we're able to kind of take that inspiration and expand onto something else. Like authors like H.P. Lovecraft, like someone who was horrible as a person, people were able to take his concept of horror and build their own monsters and villains, and they were able to create worlds that were a lot more inclusive and horrific. And it's like you can take something small that comes from a place of corruption and like a really shitty world, and you can build something better and more original and more unique. And like there's a revolution and there's a sense of power in how you write, and the books you end up writing will give birth to even more authors and creative minds, and like then they'll outlive you. Like so even when you're gone, your kid will pick up a book and then they'll pass it down to their kid, or someone in a school who may be getting bullied will discover that like this won't last forever, and I can write a story that will be passed down later. So it's this concept of like creativity never really goes away, and like this concept of like, if you read a book about women on an island who have power and are able to harness it and control their own bodies and control their own minds, like it creates this cycle of like, even smut, people saying like smut has no power. I'm like, people having agency over their own bodies and learning through books. It's okay to say no. It's okay to pace yourself. Love does not need to look this way. You know, there is beauty in communication. People need to be taught how to love. People need to be taught about consent and communication. Smut is actually quite useful. So people who poo-poo on it, I think it's roots back to like people like shitting on anything that women enjoy unless it serves a purpose for them. You know what I mean? So I think it's one of those things where it's like women, men, non-binary, trans, everyone should have a space to read and learn and get that sense of an education and spread that and re-educate and like rewrite history. And like you can read about your ancestors, you can read about women running with wolves and like punching monsters and like just transcending time and like being their own gods and goddesses. And like I don't know, it's powerful, it's all encompassing, and like there's no room for bullshit, you know. So it's like, oh, it's so cool, like women can slay vampires and have magical powers and be bad bitches, and it's fantastic, you know. So, and they can also have a love story if they want, so you don't have to choose one or the other. And it's like,
no, we can have it all.
And your books give it all. They give it all. So it's absolutely amazing. And you write yearning and love and friendship, and you balance it all. So one does not supersede the other. Like it all makes sense. And it's all just so great. So thank you so much for coming on the podcast, y'all. This is absolutely amazing. Yeah.
Oh, of course. This is awesome.
Thank you. So yes, we discussed spoilers. We discussed vampire, Batman, Taylor Lautner, witchcraft on an island, with body agency. We discussed it all. We discussed the Cheeto very briefly. That's who I'm calling our president. The fiery Cheeto Krampus ass. So it's all of that. You cursed gremlin, but it's but yes, it's that the best way I can describe it. So it's very much like that. But like your books are absolutely wonderful. Busy reading romantasy. I need fantasy in my life. I need it all. So tell everyone where they can find you guys. I will link your social medias below. But thank you both for being on the podcast and just being absolutely wonderful and being amazing. So yes, but yeah, tell them where they can find you guys.
Go for it.
Okay, sure. Well, and first, thank you for being amazing and for having us on. This is great. Yeah, you can find me at Angela Montoya _author on Instagram and TikTok. And that's kind of the two places I live. You can also sign up for my newsletter that I just started. So you can go to my website and sign up there. I've officially written one newsletter, but I'm going to get better at it.
That's cool.
So yeah, more to come.
More updates.
Yes.
Yeah, and then as for me, you can find me. The podcast is on YouTube and Spotify, Busy Reading Romantasy. I'm on Instagram at Busy Reading Romantasy. TikTok is the only funky one where I think there's like a period in between each because it was taken or something. I don't know. But anyways, I have a link tree so you can find me anywhere. And thank you to Alyssa for getting this all scheduled and inviting me on. I've had so much fun.
I'm just a chaotic babe, you know? So yeah, I said, I will email everyone and I'm going to make this work. So I'm grateful that you all available and you made time to geek out and discuss all the things about these beautiful books. Like even the covers are iconic. Like they're so full of color and like emotion and feelings, and I'm just grateful that you both made time. Thank you for everyone who listened. Please like this on YouTube and give a rating on Spotify, and please follow both of these amazing women. They have a lot coming out, they have a lot of things going on, and I am just grateful for everyone who listened. So yeah, have a great day. Yay. We did